it's me, Heinel. If you don't know me, I'm Heinel. Today I'm just discussing about a few subjects relating to anime and anime-related culture that I would think should be discussed because, well, it's probably important, in my opinion. But primarily the purpose of this video is actually just for practice because I don't really have much experience talking in a video format. So this is mostly just for me. And this will be mostly unedited, just me talking, pretty much. I don't plan on changing, how I talk, really. Or I'll keep the uhs and whatnot, because this is not really meant to be professional. It's just me, talking about stuff that's, concerning me. But I will be editing out any extraneous pauses, so it may appear that I'm talking faster than I normally will. But sorry if my breathing sound is a bit much. But anyway, about the background of the video, it will be solely consisting of me playing Mii Brawler, quick play, and arenas, demolishing, a few of who's pretty much. You'll probably be able to tell. But yes, I'm only using footage where I win, because I mean, how am I supposed to show how awesome Mii Brawler is if I'm not winning? But yeah, it's pretty much just gonna be there. You can watch it if you want. I don't really intend for anyone to watch it. It's gonna be mostly unedited. It's just gonna be entire matches. So watch it if you want. I don't really care. But if you want to see Mii Brawler, it's there. As for specifically what I'll be talking about, I'll be talking about arbitrary factors that limit people's enjoyments of works such as visual novels and anime. I'll be talking about how important visual novels are, particularly related to how the Fate series is perceived as well. And I'll be talking about the importance of how cohesion in your experience leads to a better work, in my opinion, rather than if this makes this thing good or bad. And as well, I will be talking about, I'm sure some of you know, I've discussed it before on my Twitter, about problematic content and anime-related things. I will discuss that probably last. I'm not sure if I will put it last. You'll see. I'll put timestamps in the video and in the post, just so you can see and skip if you don't want to hear me talk about, some bullshit for like 5 minutes. Anyway, yeah, this is just me practicing and talking. Hopefully you think my opinion matters. I think my opinion matters, actually, because I believe I can formulate, a well-formulated opinion. So, listen if you want. If you don't want to listen, then don't listen. I don't care. It's just me talking about things I think that matter. Alright, and I'll get on with the rest of the video. So anyway, I'm going to talk about visual novels for a bit, or rather, not specifically the visual novels themselves, but rather the surrounding ideas about visual novels, particularly Fate, which I'll get into in a bit. But specifically, I want to discuss why people don't really value them, or rather, why I don't understand, because frankly, it makes no sense. Frankly speaking, there's a notion that visual novels, they take too long. Like, for example, somebody's gonna say, oh, I don't have time to read a visual novel, and then they're gonna read, or watch, rather, fucking like 3, 24 episode anime series. Yes, I'm talking about Fate fans, or some shit like that, or a 24-hour, or like 24 episode anime, 24-hour. Anyway, and it's not that hard. Just you download the thing, and then you sit down and read it. You have the time to do it. You're just not willing to invest in a different kind of medium. That's frankly the reality of the situation, which I think is a shame, because visual novels have very unique strengths compared to other mediums, or rather, I would say they're probably the most misunderstood medium in general, or because visual novels specifically are quite niche in their appeal, but they have very specific strengths. Or like, for example, I'm gonna say people say a visual novel's like oh, it doesn't know if it wants to be a game or a book because you have choices like a game, but it's mostly words like a book, and then they're like, and that leads them to conclude that it's going to be inherently worse, which is frankly very biased and unrealistic preconception about the genre, because books, okay, I'm gonna say the books are I would say writing in its quote-unquote purest form, not necessarily its best form, but books, it's simply for the writing to work itself. But visual novels, they have images, they have sound, they have soundtrack, they have voice acting, depending on, the series. They have backgrounds, they have character sprites. They can have visual effects like red text or effects on the screen, which really add much more than you would expect to the experience because it allows the author to tune the feeling or the atmosphere of each section very specifically. And in books, of course, you can do that with your words, but in visual novels, it's very powerful because you can use your words and other cues at the same time. And frankly speaking, it's a problem because people don't understand or what a visual novel can do for them. Because they'll watch an anime series, for example, like on the Fate, Steins Gate, something like that, and they'll watch it, they'll read it on the wiki, and they go, "Oh well, this this series, I pretty much know everything, so there's not really much the visual novel could add for me, I think." And so they kind of ignore the possible nuance that having the detailed situations and thoughts of character that could really add to their experience, and also of course the different design possibility that in the visual novel, because for animation they have to make concessions. They can't have a character just speak like 1,000 million words themselves. Well, I could go into like, I don't know, Fate, and just like a reoccurring like Shiro monologue. I could check how many words that is, and obviously it would be unreasonable to put that into an anime because then you'd have to speak it all, which would make it very difficult. So it leads to a false conception that visual novels don't have much merit because they take too long to give content, which is not true. Or rather, the content that you're missing from a visual novel is in the moment to moment, because that is where the character is shown the strongest. And that's what I think is the greatest strength of the visual novel, actually, is its ability to set the atmosphere and show the viewer how the character orients themselves towards their environment, which is really a very powerful strength, I would say. And there's also a misconception as well that visual novels, they take too long to give to, or like too little in comparison to books, I would say, which is also false, because frankly they have much more content than books actually do. Because, well, even if you weren't to include the other factors aside from the writing, the soundtrack and the visuals and the sound design and stuff like that, a lot of visual novels would have more content than like some of the most heralded book series. Like for example, Lord of the Rings is, I believe it's around 470 to 550,000 characters, or not characters, words, sorry, something like that. And Fate Stay Night, the visual novel by itself, is way more than Lord of the Rings trilogy series. Like, it is way more, considerably more. And actually, I believe it's longer than the King James Bible, I believe. But I'm not sure, so I would have to check. But if you were to throw in Hollow Ataraxia, which is another novel aside from Fate, but it's connected to Fate, it would probably be over the Harry Potter series, I believe, which is about 1 million words. So it's definitely on the level of like Grand Trilogy, or even better, or rather longer, because longer isn't necessarily better. But the visual novel, genre is very well suited to those type of long, saga type of stories. And some of my favorite works are in those type of formats, so I think it's something worth considering. And to follow up on what I said earlier about the characters, the strength of visual novels being able to show how the character orients themselves towards their environment, is something that's really specific to visual novels in my opinion. Or rather, I haven't read any or experienced any other work that's done it as well as some of the visual novels I read. And for example, there's some really good ones in anime or manga or stuff like that. Like for example, Mob Psycho 100. Mob's a very good character. Much of the anime, or rather manga, adapted into anime, is centered around showcasing how he interacts with others, or because that's pretty much what it's about. And frankly, it's very, very powerful. But in visual novels, they have the power of the individual thoughts of the character being able to be displayed, which really showcases how they approach thinking, which is very difficult to show in a lot of anime. Because, for example, you can't have the character, like I said before, just keep talking or do this or that, because you have to frame it within a certain amount of time. But in visual novels, it's much faster to read because the characters' inner thoughts, they aren't voiced because they aren't voiced, they're not talking. which allows the viewer to experience them much more quickly, like how a character would think, or, they can sit on the thoughts as well, which, allows them to moderate their own experience as well, which is also a plus, I think, in visual novels, but admittedly a more minor one. But anyway, a large part, or rather I should say problem, that is involved with visual novels adapted into anime that are causing people to miss the high value of visual novels is they don't get to experience what really makes certain characters great. Like, for example, Okabe in Steins Gate and Shiro in Fate Stay Night, because these characters they think a lot, or rather in Shiro's case I should say that he doesn't understand a lot, but he thinks about it a lot. But these characters have reoccurring thoughts that really shape how they perceive situations and how they act, pretty much, because you could say they're both quote-unquote coping characters, but you really don't get to see how they're considering themselves of each situation, which you miss out on a lot. It's frankly huge. I'm not sure how else to really describe that. Fuck, I hit my keyboard. Or rather, what I should say is that since these characters are very designed around a thoughtful process where you consider each thought that they're having in the moment, and then they act. It's a very different experience compared to an anime where they're keeping a brisk pace, they're constantly presenting the viewer, because if you don't, then the pacing is bad, because you tend to have a specific time frame in which to do things. And even in, anime movies, they tend to keep a brisk pace. Like, if you've watched, like, I don't know, like a Makoto Shinkai movie, you know that they're keeping a very specific pace in order to keep up the tone of the movie, which doesn't let them characterize a character as much as they could. Which is the greatest strength of the visual novel, like I said. Which and for these characters, which are really, really powerful when you get to experience how they're dealing with situations around them, I think you're missing out. That's pretty much what I just wanted to say about that. And it's very, misunderstood, because, people go, oh, Fate's a, fucking porn book, or, or it's like, visual novels are just, a way to fucking read. Well, it's so much more than just like how it's memed. So I really think it's if you haven't read a visual novel, you should. In fact, I'm ready to recommend any to you. And some of my favorite ones, I'm willing to give you the goods. Or it's like one of them I read recently. Was actually it's undoubtedly an R18 one, but it's one of the best ones I've read. Because it, they use things that are unique to the genre that you can, see and feel, viscerally, much more different than a book or an anime. So, or even a game. Although many games, venture into VN territory. Like you could say, I don't know, like some of the story-based, RPG Maker games, or you could say even Undertale. But Undertale's got a lot of gameplay elements as well. But that's a different kind of ballpark, so I'm not really gonna get into that. But I just wanted to say. Read visual novels because you have the time to do it, and I'm gonna make you do it at some point, maybe, I don't know. You should just do it. But yeah, I'll move on to the next point real quick. So anyway, I'm gonna discuss things that arbitrarily limit people's enjoyments of works, particularly with the intent and the genre of the work. This is linked as well to the importance of cohesion that I was gonna discuss, so that'll be after this one. But frankly, it's something I don't really quite understand. Or rather, it's saying I don't understand. What I don't get is someone will see something, and it's very clearly designed to be a specific way, but they'll disregard that intent and design and criticize the work for like a design-like decision. Now, if you're an anime fan, or have pretty decent investment into the anime, medium, there's a very high chance that you know about Trigger Studios and their, style to be overly bombastic and abandon, common sense in their anime. It's a very common theme, and, they're often joked about, oh, they always have to go over the top and, include aliens and, stuff like that. And I mean, those exist for a reason. But, it's very within a specific design intent for their anime. And a really easy example for me is to talk about Promare, which I'm sure many of you watched recently, or at least within the last year, because, well, I got all uppity saying, hey guys, watch this fucking movie, because it's so good, and it is pretty good in my opinion, but that's another aside. But anyway, it's a movie that, it's definitely not focused on having a very methodical story. I mean, Studio Trigger can definitely do a methodical story, but that isn't the focus of this movie in particular, of course. It's a movie that has a Deus Ex Machina, and it's called Deus Ex Machina. It's like, I don't believe it's a valid criticism to say, oh, the story's not good, they have, this and that, they have Deus Ex Machina. Or, like, they're literally intending to. For those of you who don't know, hold on, let me look it up right now. Or, like, I believe it's a man within the machine. Deus Ex Machina. Deus Ex Machina. Okay, well, I know what it means. Well, anyway. It's a term used to describe things that, unexpectedly, come into a seemingly hopeless situation, and as a plot device within a story. But anyway, they literally play off of it as a joke because it's like literally doesn't make sense. It saves the story. And so I don't really believe it's a valid criticism to to criticize the intended design of a work. I've been saying and a bit too much, but I mean, well, I'll worry about that later. I'm not gonna edit that. Anyway, as I was saying, I don't believe it's a valid criticism to attack the intended design of a work, or it's it's within a genre or an intended design to elicit a specific response from the reader. I don't know, if you don't go into a romantic comedy and say, where's the plot progression? I mean, at a certain point you can expect it, of course, but that's not the intent of the work. It's not supposed to have consistent development. It's just supposed to be a comedy with a romantic theme. And I don't believe that's a very valid criticism because the work is intended to be that way. Now, I believe the best way to spin it in that way is to criticize the effect it has on the work. For example, in Promare, actually I'll go to a different example. In Devilman Crybaby, it has a very, very dark tone to it. It's intended to be, overly bleak. And, people complain, and they're like, why is it just so edgy and so overly bleak? I don't understand what this does for the story. And it's like, well, it's intended to be that way. Or it's like, you have to examine the work based on the merit of an element that, gives to its intended overall effect. And this is the one element I think that makes people, quote-unquote, miss the point in a lot of works. I mean, you can't really miss the point, so to say, because, a work's enjoyment is, relative and, subjective. But what I mean is, the specific design is, designed to elicit a certain response from the reader. And you should examine a work not based on its individual elements existing, like, oh, this has a Deus Ex Machina. Well, that doesn't mean a Deus Ex Machina is bad, or often it's used to patch up a story because the author doesn't have a good way to patch it up. But there are times where it can be used in an intended manner, and people should respect that. Basically what I'm just trying to say is, people should criticize a work based on its overall merit and how it achieves that, rather than taking a specific element like, oh, I don't like how this element is done. Or it's like, well, what if it's intended to just be done in that specific way? Or it's like, how is it a negative trait for something to be a way if it intends to be? Or it's like, I guess you could say it's bad to be that way, but I believe that's a very narrow-minded approach. Because, in Promare's case, like I said before, it's not intended to have a very complex story. It's supposed to be very simple. And so people say, well, then the story's not good. It's like, man, does that mean a simple story is bad? You don't take a picture book and say, oh, the story is bad because it's not stimulating me enough. It's like, it's not intended to stimulate you. It's a picture book for a kid or something. You need to take the overall approach used by the author, or whoever is making it, and examine it as it's intended to be, and then see how it achieves its intended effect. I believe that's the best way to criticize a work. I don't believe it's good to associate a work based on preconceptions of how other authors or other writers or whatever have used that element. It's simply simply biased, is what I would say. And this goes into what I was going to talk about with Cohesion as well. And I'll just add on the part about cohesion as well to this because they're pretty closely related. So, I'll put them in a timestamp, I suppose, for just the start of this and just put them together, even though I said they would be separate at the start. But anyway, and it's so basically, it's related to how, overall, like how elements contribute to a story, or aka cohesion, like I said. And people, they criticize individual elements too much, in my opinion. Actually, one of the biggest examples I can give is Makoto Shinkai movies, where people often criticize Your Name for having some, story flaws, which it certainly has. But Makoto Shinkai's focus on the movie is a very emotional one. So I believe that, it is a valid criticism, of course, to criticize, the story not being, as good as it could be, which would definitely serve to improve the overall effect of the movie. But you should examine the work based on how it's achieving its emotional appeal, because it's an emotional work. Like if you're examining, a thesis, you should examine it based on, the merit of the thesis, which is usually, an intellectual one or, an analytical one. Which is yes, you shouldn't examine it based on your emotional response because it's not intended to respond to you or have you respond in that way. Just an aside, I just realized in the rest of this recording I have had my clock running, but oh well, fuck, it doesn't matter. Anyway, as I was saying, some people might say that I'm using this to eliminate a work from being criticized, which I'm not really intending to, but I just believe that it's pointless to criticize a work when it's intended to just be a specific way. That's just how it is, because I'm not gonna criticize this for being this genre because it's that genre. That's just how it is. So I think people should just be more targeted in how they, consider a work, basically. That's pretty much what I just wanted to say. Because, if you set aside that, then you can value what the work is doing. Like for Premiere, I'm gonna bring it up again. It's it sacrifices, or maybe not sacrifice, but it has a more specific aim with its story. So it just goes for this very simple story because it's intended to have a specific design for the rest of how the movie feels, which you can definitely feel it in the movie. I believe if you focus on the story that way, you miss out on what is good about the rest of the work. It's you should just take it as it is whole, rather than pick it apart and say, oh, this is bad because of this and this and this. It's no, it's a work is the sum of its parts and more. There's plenty of things out there that you can pick them apart, especially in older media. Is you can pick it apart and say, oh, this is age, this is age, this is age, but keep it together and you'll be able to see what makes it, what makes people like it. Because, anime is definitely one of those mediums where it's greater than the sum of its parts, no doubt. And of course, that goes for every medium, but anime specifically very, very much. So, consider that next time you say some shit's got a bad story because you just didn't like how this one thing or this other thing. Just consider what it's doing for the story, I think. Or not the story, but the entire work itself. That's pretty much what I just wanted to say for that. Okay, so finally, I'm going to talk about what some of you probably been expecting me to talk about is, about problematic content in anime, and generally animated-related things. Or something I really don't understand, or rather, it's, I do understand, but it's really a Western fandom phenomenon, it really is. And I'll go into why I think people do it, and what that really means for the Western fandom, I think, in general. And so first I'll discuss why people do this sort of thing, and I think it's the most understandable point to begin with, which is, people believe, or, basically, they believe that this content in anime, and often they go after, other people as well, or it's proving to be a problem for, the people that it represents, or, it represents a thing that's not moral, which I think, on a fundamental level is understandable. I think, it's good to, promote, good morals, and, don't do this or that, and I can definitely agree with that, to an extent. And, I generally do believe that a lot of these people generally have good intentions. And, it's often, as I say, good intentions aren't always the best thing, to be considered just by themselves. and I'll go into why this is not the most formulated examination of what they consider to be problematic. And to start off with, I'm just gonna put out there right now that most of the situations in this occurs, it's cherry picking. That is what I believe, or rather, I believe that there's an unnatural bias against any type of sexual content, because this is typically surrounded by sexual content. Because people don't go after, something like gore, or guro as it's called, or anything like that is, depicts immoral actions, because I believe that it's just an obsession with things of a sexual nature within the Western society in general. But I'll go into that in a bit later. But basically, I'm just going to say yes, it's cherry picking to a degree, because I don't really understand the reasoning that makes sexual content different than violent content. Or, I mean, I guess I can see, because people say, oh, it's violent content's often paired with, like, a story and stuff like that, and all that. And, sexual content's just there to be sexual. And, like, I can see that. But I don't really think it's proper, because of a few reasons. The first reason of which I'll say it's clearly a bias against anything with sexual content. It's clearly a bias. And what I mean by that is there are plenty of works out there that feature sexual subjects, often of which are within a traumatic setting or something like that, and it's often used as a means in the story to develop a character or this or that. And so I don't believe it's improper to go after something being sexual, or rather something depicting an immoral sexual situation, because if you go after stuff that you believe is not moral in that situation, then you're basically saying that you're going to quantify the worth of a work based on what you think the sexual situations in it are consisting of. And so that brings me to my second reason, which is pretty much linked to that, is that I believe that attempting to quantify the worth of a work in this type of way is very misguided, because it leads one to basically they determine whether a work is able to exist or not based on what they degree is suitable to be included, which I believe to be very, very wrong, because I believe that it violates the creative rights of an author or an artist. Because even though, like, let's say for example, they have they're honestly depicting something awful, and like they're promoting it, and this or that, and that's certainly terrible, and you can report these people, or like block them or whatever like that. But I do not believe that it's proper to go after all like content similar to that in general, because then you're decreeing, okay, well, is this worth it or not? I don't believe that it's worth even considering like banning such a thing, because then it limits people from using that in order to explore the subject deeply and in a mature manner. I do not believe it's right, because I've read many works where they include traumatic experiences, especially of a sexual nature, and it genuinely adds much to the experience. Definitely in my experience. And I believe that if you restrict people from even engaging with this type of experience at all, or this type of subject at all, then it means that you limit people who make good work or have good intentions from using it in a proper way. That is what I believe. Going off of that, I just believe that pursuing moderating this type of content, aside from limiting to like a 18 plus audience, is that basically is one of the lowest value things you can go after, because I believe that there's so little to gain from going after it. Like it's just not even worth the time, even if you were to believe that it causes bad things. But I'll get more into that in a bit. But rather, what I want to discuss is what even quantifies as problematic content to begin with for a lot of people. Going off what I said earlier relating to that is people tend to have an obsession with the sexual content in particular, which I don't really understand. I believe it's a very Western thing to be against this type of stuff in general. But basically, I'll just sum it up as anything that's relate, like for example, like I don't know, in Hero Academia, people going after the author because he drew his characters in like skimpy swimsuits and stuff like that, but they're high schoolers, right? And so I don't believe that this is really problem, I guess. I mean, people will say it's pedophilic, I suppose. It's like, I mean, I guess you could say that a pedophile would be able to use it, but I mean, Hero Academia is smart, or like it's made for people of that age, you know, middle school or high schoolers. Where it's like, I don't believe it's inherently bad for people to be exposed to sexual content, because I believe that rather than limiting sexual content, or like you know, sexually charged content, I suppose, is you know, people need to be educated on what this stuff actually means in terms of reality and in fiction. And what I mean by that is people often cite that reality is indeed affected by fiction, which I don't really agree with. Well, first of all, the people who say this type of thing will not agree with the notion that video games cause violence, but they'll go ahead and say that, you know, manga or anime incite pedophilia. Just frankly, I don't understand why it's different just because it's sexual. It doesn't make sense. I've never heard a good argument for that, or regarding why anime and stuff like that incite pedophilic, you know, situations more than, but you know, video games don't incite, you know, violent situations. I simply do not understand, because I've never gotten a good reason from somebody about that. So frankly, setting the you know, the fiction affects reality aside, like, even if you did believe that, there's plenty of situations where obviously it doesn't. Or I'll say that fiction affects reality is definitely a different discussion than like something like fake news, where it's like supposed to be propagated to be reality, but the fiction in this situation is not supposed to be pretending to be reality. It's just fiction. But anyway, basically, I'm just gonna talk about yes, I'm gonna talk about the Sugoi Dekai girl, or Izaki-chan, basically, as she's known. Or rather, that's actually her name. I don't know why I said that. But anyway, I don't understand why it's such a big deal. Or rather, the reason why I believe that it's propagated to be a big deal is a culmination of what's wrong with Western fandom. Now, I'll get into why this is a problem, basically. Well, first I'll start by saying I don't understand the quantifications people use to determine if anime is being, you know, pedophilic or not, and like its design. Like, cause for example, just with Uzaki-chan to begin with, as her proportions are correct, or the number one trait of a childlike design. Sorry for my stuttering. Is the proportion, because the proportion of the head to the body is much smaller than the proportion of the head to the body in an adult. And Uzaki-chan's proportions are perfectly designed, so that doesn't make her childlike. But for some reason, people have an obsession with calling her childlike because of her eyes. Or people are saying, of course, at first, like, oh, she's got a childlike body, and then, you know, she's got all this stuff, and, you know, she's a sexualized character. And so, I mean, I could understand that if it was correct, but it's not. She has a properly proportioned body, and then now people are saying, oh, why would we care about the proportions? Her childlike, you know, aspect is her face. And that kind of gets into what I wanted to talk about next, which is why people think anime designs are inherently childish. Or rather than childish, I suppose I should say appearing younger than they would be implied to be. Because, well, I mean, it's no secret that, you know, Asian people, or Japanese people, you know, they definitely tend to appear younger than they actually are, and that this is definitely part of the basis within at least old anime. And, you know, in current anime now, it has this very specific, you know, stylization that's, you know, is really, really common. Where the characters, they have larger eyes than, you know, a normal human would have, and, you know, they tend to have a childlike face, or like a childish face. And so I don't really understand why this makes it pedophilic, because this is just how anime is like stylized. They just have a young looking face. I don't believe that makes it pedophilic in any way. Although, I mean, I guess you could say that then anime's designs are pedophilic to begin with, which I don't really agree with, because anime's just always been stylized and has never been intended to be one-to-one to, you know, how things appear in reality. So I don't understand why you're so intent on comparing stylizing decisions to, you know, what things look like in reality, because it's not intended to look like reality. It's intended to, you know, look in a specific way, and I don't understand why it's such a big deal for a character to have such large eyes. And to even get into that more, Uzaki-chan's definitely intended to have large eyes. Not to appear childish necessarily. I mean, it obviously adds to her childish personality, which I don't understand why that's a reasoning for people to call it pedophilic, or saying that she acts like a child. There are plenty of adult characters who act like a child, or even people who act like a child, and so it's just a character trait. I don't believe that it makes it pedophilic for her to be acting like a child, or frankly, I believe that's very wrong of people to say, because essentially they're saying you're a child if you act like a child, which isn't necessarily true. It's just, you're acting like a child, you're just being childish, you're not mature. Which is, that's something that can apply to a wide majority of people, or a wide range of people, sorry. And so I don't understand why that is a contributing factor in making it quote-unquote pedophilic. So anyway, getting into that a bit more, I'll try not to stay too long on particularly Uzaki-chan in this topic, but basically, so we set aside that her body is not inherently pedophilic because, it's a properly proportioned, body. And, I believe it's very wrong of people to say that it's impossible for somebody to be structured this way. Or structured. So to have a body of this type. Which definitely there are people who are, short, and they've got fucking massive badonkers. Which, that definitely exists. And I know a few in my life, and I believe it's very, very wrong of people to just assert that it's impossible for these people to exist. And even then, setting that aside, if they want to say that her face makes her like a child, or it's so the one thing that's making her a child in your eyes is the stylization that's common to all anime characters. Or not all anime characters, but a large amount of anime characters. Which I don't really understand because, well, one, why are you complaining about Uzaki-chan in general? Or, I mean, I know her design's, annoying, because she's literally intended to be an annoying character. She's supposed to be an annoying little brat, which is, that's just part of it. But anyway, I don't understand, what is so arbitrary to decide that an anime character, which is definitely far removed from reality already, is pedophilic because of their eyes. That doesn't make a character pedophilic. It's their eyes are large because it's supposed to give them a specific design intent. Although I guess you could say the design intent is to look like a child, which I guess it makes it more childish. But that a childish person or a childish looking person doesn't mean they're a child. That just means they're looking that way. There are plenty of people who look childish as an adult. I don't understand. Even if you wanted to compare, anime to reality, one-to-one, it still wouldn't make sense because these people exist. I don't understand why it's pedophilic. And this type of stylization has been within anime for a very long time. Even in the very, very old anime, or it's the chibi. I'm sure you're aware of what chibi is, the chibi art style, where characters' eyes and head are very proportionately larger compared to their body. Which, it's an art style, and that's definitely carried over into modern anime design, where obviously they're more modeled towards humans, or more directly, but they still have that sort of chibi anime type of look to their face, which is just how anime looks. And I don't believe that comparing the stylizations of the drawing of an anime character is accurate to what a human would actually be looking like. Because frankly, look at a fucking anime character. You think a fucking real life person's got fucking purple hair and other shit like that? It's I don't believe it's very accurate to compare it so directly. But I'll just give even if I were to give credence and say, okay, this is inherently a pedophilic design for anime to be doing this type of thing, it still wouldn't make sense for people to go after it. And I'll explain why here. And by that I mean, so let's suppose that okay, so a large majority of anime watchers aren't even actual pedophiles. Let's just put that out there right now. Because pedophiles are already an extremely minority group to begin with. So I don't believe it's accurate to call anime fans pedophiles. Or the same way it isn't accurate to call smashers pedophiles, but that's a little hanging fruit. So I prefer not to get into that. But anyway, so even if you were to suppose that pedophiles are using this content, it still wouldn't make sense to constantly grandstand about why it's immoral to have this thing exist, because you should you should gauge its value of existing by how much you gain and how much you lose by having it exist. And what I mean exactly by that is, of course, there are plenty of people who, they enjoy anime and they enjoy, ecchi situations, or it's like, sexually charged situations that are, really low-hanging fruit comedy. I'm not gonna say that I think this shit is really funny either, and oftentimes it's a bit more creepy than I would like it to be. Which, that's the way it is for some people, and, I'm fine with it existing. But anyway, that aside, so even if you consider that, a small proportion of the people intaking this content are actually pedophiles, it still doesn't make sense to go after it, because, what is it actually, doing? So, you could say, the best argument I've seen for this is, people can use it to groom minors, which is definitely a thing, but, in my opinion, this is just my opinion for solving this problem, which I believe it's, actually a Western society problem regarding, sexual things, is, that, these people who are young just need to be educated about what sexual content is, earlier, because, people often cite, early exposure to sexual things, can warp someone's perception and stuff, which is certainly true, but I believe that it just means that people need to be more upfront about what this stuff actually is and, discuss how to use it healthily and, what the stuff actually means compared to reality. And simply that it's a fantasization. I can't speak English. But it's not concerned one-to-one with reality, is basically what I'm trying to say. And going off of that, even if people were to, or pedophiles were to be engaging with this content, and obviously no one's gonna fucking tell you that they're actually a pedophile, directly. Because usually people, who are like that don't say those type of things. But if people were, like that and engaging with this content, what do you gain or lose by, saying that this content should be, eradicated and removed? And where I'm going with that is basically I'm trying to say is, even if pedophiles are engaging this content, it doesn't do any good to remove it because, well, one, you remove it from pedophiles, quote-unquote pedophiles, who haven't done anything, is you remove an outlet for them, which, even if we're to suppose that the content itself is pedophilic, which it isn't, but even if we were to suppose that it is, then you remove an outlet for, those who haven't done anything, from, using it to, circumvent their desires from becoming into reality. Because I don't believe that, it's the same way that, video games don't incite violence. There's, and some violent people actually become less violent because they have a proper outlet for them to do so. And so I believe the same would apply to this immoral type of situation. But even though I know some people will go after me for saying this, how can you suggest that we let pedophiles have anything? Or it's I'm not suggesting that we let pedophiles have anything. What I'm saying, though, is that you serve more to lose by removing this content. Because there's so many, I'll just say that the large majority of actual pedophiles don't even engage with anime to begin with. Actual pedophiles. And this has to get into my next point, basically, what I'm trying to talk about. Which is basically Western fandom, I suppose I should say. Obsession with calling things the worst possible thing that you can call it. So it's let's say, Izaki-chan is a pedophilic design, right? And so, okay, so you're saying that this design is made for pedophiles, okay? So, and you're saying whoever likes it is pretty much bordering or, going towards that sort of area. I'm not saying that they are, but, you're basically saying that, you're kind of sussing if you're liking this stuff. I mean, it's not constructive to call things the worst thing possible because those words have a purpose. Or rather, what I should say is that you should not call something the worst possible thing, like a pedophile or a murderer or this or that, because they're not until they become one. And what I mean by that is, basically, you're promoting the idea that somebody can be a pedophile without being one. Alright, because you have to be, in order to be a pedophile, you have to be, exploiting children in a sexual manner, right? Or people who are not of age or are able, to make a adult, opinion, basically, or adult decision, and you're exploiting them. And I don't believe that it's really proper to say these type of things, in this way, because it lessens the the actual reality of like what a pedophile actually is. Going into that, there's also a really common thing where people call things weird, right? Or it's like you're weird as hell for like if you like this type of thing. People have been saying about Uzaki-chan all the time, and so I think it's fine to call something weird. I suppose it's definitely better than just saying you're a pedophile, you like this or that. But I don't really like it because it gives people, or rather, it normalizes the idea that you can criticize something without actual criticism. Or rather, what I mean by that is, weird is a extremely, it's such an ambiguous term that doesn't actually mean anything concrete. It just means that you consider it, abnormal. And, I'm gonna be frank with you, like, again, I know this is a terrible comparison because we're talking about pedophiles here. And I'm not saying that pedophiles are similar to these people in any way, but, LGBT people, I am in the LGBT as well. And, we're definitely abnormal. And I don't want to say that like it's a bad thing. It's just like a true thing. We're not, quote unquote, normal, but we are normal people, if that makes sense. Because, it's a trait that's abnormal, but it doesn't make us, non-normal people in that sense. Whereas, like, and people keep using this, terming a weird that makes it extremely negative, which, I can see why they're doing it, but I believe that it undermines actually calling things for what they are, because I don't believe that, or basically, I just believe that it normalizes the idea that you can call something immoral or this or that without actually constituting, full reasoning why. That's why I see people, they keep going after Uzaki-chan. It's like, oh, this shit's so fucking weird, and like it's weird and wrong, and people keep saying like, well, her proportionally correct, and this and this and that, and these people exist, and just like, and it's so weird. Why? Like her eyes are too big. You're really weird. I don't like that. I don't really agree with the idea that people should be saying these type of things because it just normalizes criticizing people or saying things are immoral without any actual basis. And there are definitely people who give like reasoning for themselves, and like maybe it's misguided, or maybe they're wrong or right or whatever. But it's definitely better than just ambiguously saying some shit is weird, in my opinion at least. So sum that bit up. Aside from what people are calling it, basically saying that, or since there's so little to gain, like what would you gain by removing this? That is basically you make yourself feel better, and I guess you remove like an out or like a potential outlet for people who are immoral, right? And like that's such a low amount to gain for people who just they just enjoy this work because it's not serious, this and this and that, and it's just for them to enjoy. So I don't believe that it's even if you were to consider the work quote unquote problematic, I don't believe that there's a good reason to campaign against it basically. And getting into that more is I believe the Western fandom is definitely at odds, or I guess Western fandom culture specifically. And this gets into Western culture in general as well. But there's definitely a large difference in Western culture and Japanese culture and otaku culture. Or like, and I'm not saying that Japanese culture or otaku culture is right at all. But like, there's definitely a lot of creepy things within otaku culture, or like specific subsections of Japanese culture, like idol culture, for example. But what I'm saying is that people should attempt to understand things from both perspectives, at least before they go and call something immoral. Because I think these people, I don't think it's or rather, what I should say is people. It's not like the Japanese people haven't discussed this before, right? It's or even otaku like people like they definitely considered the ramifications or like what this and this and does really means. And so I don't believe that overriding what a lot of Japanese people think is really right either. And it's not to say there aren't Japanese people who agree with the Western fandom at all. There are definitely some, but what I'm saying is people often jump on this type of thing without a really formulated opinion, basically. And they'll condemn it and saying, "Oh, this is pedophilia. Why would you even consider liking this?" And it's like, no, you should have more faith in others, basically, in other cultures or in other subsections of cultures. Like, attempt to understand it before you go and say something like this, because it's not like people are intending to be evil. They're just, liking this type of thing. And, it goes for everyone. Or, like, and I'm sure, you have good intentions as well. Like, you want to let people know what they're doing is wrong. But you should understand it before you say something like that, I think. Because often it's people who don't even understand anime or have any investment, beyond watching, I don't know, like 1 or 2 series, is, they say these things, which are really harmful to anime culture. Because, there are many, many good things about anime. And I don't really like it when people just, assert, oh, fucking people who like anime is creepy. And, you might be saying, well, nobody's saying that, fucking Heinel, you stupid motherfucker. It's like, we're just saying that this shit's weird and creepy, and you shouldn't, and it's like, why are people liking it? Or it's like, you might be saying that, yes, but there are definitely people who get this impression because, this is like one of the few impressions they get. And, this is, you are experienced this probably, since you're probably a smasher, if you're listening to me. It's like people get this impression that, we're a pedophile community, and it's not true. Or like, maybe it is true, because, what's happened, but that doesn't mean that, all the community just should be trashed into the ground. It's, it's genuinely harmful to assert these type of things, and, it sets the image. So, really, I think people should think more when they're saying these type of things, instead of jumping to a conclusion because they believe, oh, this shit's fucking weird, because they don't understand why it exists, or it's not within their taste. And I mean, of course, I'm not going to say that, ecchi stuff, or like, rom-com ecchi stuff should be, liked by everyone. It's certainly not liked by everyone. It's certainly not liked by me either. But, yeah, it exists for a reason. And, maybe that reason is, to appeal to people that aren't you. And I believe that, you shouldn't condemn the reason it exists just because you don't think it's, I don't know, quote-unquote moral, I suppose. But, like, because, maybe you could say that, these things depict women in a very creepy way. And, I'm not opposed to examining that either. I think there's something to be examined there. Because, like, in, Japanese culture or even Asian culture, there's definitely a large difference in how men and women can be perceived. But I don't believe it's constructive to go after, an artist's work, that isn't even being problematic in and of itself, instead of going after, stuff that's actually problematic, like, maybe, or like, I don't know, like people who are in the anime community who are actually grooming, minors. I don't believe it's constructive to go after this type of stuff, because, it's not hurting anyone by existing, or you're just saying that it's hurting someone. And so what you're really doing is you're just saying that, oh, this is so wrong, and then, when you're done with it, you're like, you really told them how wrong it was. And then what do you actually achieve? You don't actually achieve protecting any minors, really. You ruin the reputation of anime, basically, which really, really hurts me. And maybe you say, I don't know, that anime deserves to have its reputation ruined because it's filled with stuff like this. And maybe you're right for, like, I don't know, low-end anime, probably, right? Or, like, I'm not gonna say you're right, but, I can at least see what you're saying there. But I don't believe that it's constructive, basically. I'm getting into that more, also. Like, especially with stuff that has low value of going after. Like, for example, Guro, aka, like, like mutilation and stuff like that. Or, lolly content or shura content and stuff like that. Is, definitely of a similar vein of how I would approach this as well. Because that stuff's so niche to begin with that, who is it hurting by having it exist? Like I said before, you could say that it's being used to groom people, which is definitely something that happens. But like I said, it's something that's deeply rooted within, fantasization. And I don't believe that partaking in this stuff means that you will be doing this in real life. And that's, it's frankly untrue. Because, like I said, video games don't make people violent. Why would, a piece of art make you a pedophile? It doesn't really make sense, in my opinion. And basically, this goes into the main thing I'm trying to say is, people who believe that you're a terrible, terrible person if you engage in these type of things at all, or like, lolly content or shura content, stuff I've like proposed that, or other stuff that's, quote unquote pedophilic, but isn't even like in the level of like lolly or like shura or something like that, or Guro, is that basically you're promoting the idea of a thought crime. Basically, is like, just because someone's seen it or like thought that of it existing means that they're a bad person. That isn't true. I mean, I'm sure you've thought of killing someone, Or I mean, I don't know, maybe you haven't. I'm sure there's plenty of people who have. And, you know, they've never killed someone. That doesn't make them a murderer. Same way, you know, you're not a pedophile if you look at a piece of art. That's just what I think. And frankly, you know, even setting aside that, or quantifying whether something is, you know, moral or not, even from that, even if I were to give you that, it doesn't make from a pragmatic, or it doesn't make sense from a pragmatic perspective also to even go after this type of stuff. This, like, it doesn't make sense morally, and it doesn't make sense, you know, pragmatically to, you know, be prejudiced against this stuff. That's basically what I'm just trying to say. And, you know, this is kind of me just, like, meandering and talking, so I didn't really go over as many specific points that I would have liked to, probably, but I'll probably look at this later and be like, why didn't I just talk about this or this or that? So you can, I don't know, comment in, like, Twitter or something. I won't have comments turned on for the video, probably, but, you know, you can comment or, like, DM me, and I'll be willing to talk about it to you, because it is something I genuinely believe in. I'm not trying to, you know, advocate for, like, criminal actions or, like, immoral actions. It's just that, you know, the reality of the situation, I believe, is that, you know, advocating for allowing these type of things to exist doesn't make you a criminal or a bad person. It just means that I think you don't understand what we're valuing here, and which is, you know, letting people who intend to use them in a positive manner, basically you're not letting them. And we believe that there's positive merit in letting these things exist that you're not understanding. And, you know, people will go, how can there be positive merit in, you know, a drawing of, you know, some fucking 20-year-old fucking a 14-year-old? And it's like, you know, and I'm not, you know, saying this unreasonable reaction at all. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that, you know, even if you think it's disgusting or, you know, immoral, is that, you know, frankly speaking, it hasn't hurt anyone in reality. And I do not believe personally that victimless crime should be something that people are punished for, or, you know, gone after for, basically. And so, you know, even if you don't like it, I think that you should be able to concede that, yes, there's some value in letting it exist, because it serves as, you know, an outlet for people, basically. That's what I'm trying to say. And, you know, what little there is to gain, you could argue, by going after this stuff, is so heavily outweighed by what else you could do, because there's so little to gain in the first place. So, like, I don't want to say, because, you know, a lot of people have good intentions, of course, but basically what I'm just going to say is, if you're so adamant against this stuff existing, is that why don't you just go after something that, you know, more tangible, like, that would actually protect people, instead of, you know, people who haven't actually done anything. Basically what I'm trying to say. It's like, why go after someone who hasn't done any wrong to any other person? Or, like, I mean, of course, I'm not saying there are people, you know, or there aren't people who have done any wrong to partaking in this stuff, but, yeah, it's so, you don't even know, so, like, why not just, you know, orient yourselves towards protecting, you know, people who are actually at risk, rather than, you know, going after something and then, you know, after you talk these people down into they're being weird and, you know, they're immoral or they're pedophiles, even though they aren't actually pedophiles, then, you know, then you feel good about yourself. It's just like, oh, well, what's the point of all that? You didn't actually, you know, help anyone, I think. Which really is the crux of what I want to say. It's the highest form of virtue signaling, I think. But I hate to use that word, or phrase, but that's pretty much what it is. You're not helping anyone, and that's the reality of the situation. And, you know, some of you will take offense probably to me saying that, which I don't really blame you for, because, like, it's so wrong to, like, you know, like this stuff, or, like, even partake in the stuff, or let it exist. And so, I mean, I think it's just you have to approach it with, you know, less less preconceptions within your mind, basically. And it's like, you know, it is definitely weird, and, you know, but I mean, you know, Japan, or not Japan, I mean, I don't even want to say, like, it's perfect either there, like, it's definitely not, of course, but, you know, they have their own ways of attempting to work it out, so I'd say, you know, we have to take it with, you know, as free of, you know, preconceptions as we can, I think. You know, if nobody's hurting anyone, then what harm are they doing to you or anyone else? It's basically what I want to say. And I've been saying that a lot, but, yeah, don't go after something that if it's done nobody any harm, basically. It's like, if you want to call something weird or something that or whatever, fine, do it. I don't really care, as long, like, if you call something weird or like it's not within your taste or something like that. But please, just please don't call something pedophilic or, wrong or this or that, because, you feel that, because, like, you think it's so fucking bad. It's like, maybe it offends you that much, but just examining pragmatically, what harm has it actually done to somebody? Compared to, like, something that you can actually do about yourself. That's what I just want to say. I know I've definitely gone on way longer than I intended to about this, and especially because I tend to meander a bit when I talk. But basically, I just want to conclude, or like sum up this specific part as saying, why are you doing Abusaki-chan? It hasn't hurt anybody, and 2, you're being hypocritical, or not even like thinking when you're saying that she's pedophilic, because people have shown you how she's not pedophilic, and now you're basically just saying eyes are pedophilic. 3, think about the pragmatic value of what you're going after. 4, anime is not equivalent to real life, and you can say fiction affects reality all you want, but real life pedophiles don't care about anime. They care about fucking children. That's pretty much it. 5, don't go after anime for being anime, because it's an entirely different medium, and you need to understand that with a different medium that you don't fully understand, as different culture and stuff like that. And, maybe you have an issue with the culture, but you should analyze it before you just say that some fucking anime girl's eyes are pedophilic. 6, like, even if we are to say that you're correct in saying that this is immoral, it's still not, you still have so much less value, and talking people down for liking it when they haven't done anything, because you could just put the energy towards being a tangible value towards protecting other people instead. Like, I don't know, like telling minors that it's okay if they see this have to come to contact with this content eventually, but you should educate them that it doesn't mean, or it's not equivalent to reality, so they should not say that this is okay because it's shown in a drawing or something like that. That education is better than saying that there's no reason for this thing to exist. And what's the last thing I wanted to say? There's something else. Oh, and 6, don't talk down an entire medium because you believe that it's inherently this or this or that, when it's so much more complex than you could possibly imagine. And I'm sure you wouldn't like it if someone spread shit like, oh man, this shit's so pedophilic to be fucking involved in Smash or this or that, because you already know like what that's like. And like obviously in Smash it was true to an extent because what was going on. But now that it's passed, or rather maybe not now that it's passed, but rather we're post exposure type of thing, as it's a propagated thing, a propagated joke, propagated this or that, and it's genuinely harmful. So you should consider that before you say something like that, because there's so many positives to anime existing, that just calling it this and that, it's not really right. It's not fair to anyone, and it doesn't help anyone. It doesn't all it does is make you feel good that you're saying something quote unquote right, and really you're not protecting anyone. You're just hurting the reputation of a medium that's really complex. Like, potentially there's something to criticize there, of course. Like I said, I'm not saying that anime is immune to criticism. What I'm saying though is that you need to be very targeted in like how you're discussing this. You can't just say that fucking big eyes on an anime character is pedophilic. It's just not right. And like, maybe, I don't know, like you say that, oh, but it is pedophilic. It's like, okay, like, no, if you think big eyes are pedophilic, then fine. Like, even if we were to give you that, then who cares? It's not hurting anyone. Pretty much that's just what I want to say. Like, I can't really think of much else to say right now, or I haven't written any other points. So I think I'll wrap it up here. Basically, I've talked for like 40 minutes about this in a sort of like meandering type of way. So I'm sure it's quite kind of annoying hearing me going on and all the time. But hey, this is just for me to practice like live talking, I suppose. And I did edit out extraneous pauses. But anyway, I'll conclude it here pretty much. So pretty much what I just want to finish off with is, some people will say I'm so biased towards anime. I mean, of course, it's a medium that's changed my life so positively. Like, I believe that I would not be, near as, good of a person as I could be without anime-related things. So, pretty much what I just want to say is, just try to, consider things, more widely. Don't call things, so simply and, say that it's this. Because, frankly, in reality, it's so many things and more. And so, you should approach it pragmatically. Don't have the preconception that it has to be a certain way because you feel that this is wrong. Or it's like, maybe it's more complex than you expect. And, maybe I used to be that way as well, I think. But, reading and watching a lot of things that contained a lot of things that I thought, were potentially creepy, others, or, wrong other stuff to begin with, it's changed my perspective into that where I can see how someone can use these things that are quote-unquote wrong, or, to even, discuss, and, they've used it in a way that, can spin a positive, experience for somebody. Because, some, things they contain, discussion about traumatic experiences. And, certainly not for everyone, of course. Or sometimes, a show does it wrong, or sometimes insensitive or something like that. And that goes for every medium. I don't believe that it's right to go after anime for that either. But, there's so much to anime that it's not right to just call it one thing, basically. I know I've just said that many times. But I really just want to stress that you should approach it with an open mind. So anyway, that's about it for the video. I've talked way too long. And it's like an hour. It's like over an hour long now. It's frankly a problem, which I'm sorry for, because I'm practicing talking, and this is a subject I really wanted to talk about because I believe it's more important to talk about it than to just say you're fucking wrong, or this is pedophilic, or you're a fucking Westerner, you don't have any right to say anything. It's like, man, it's good to discuss these type of things, and I mean, of course, I know it's Twitter, and nobody's gonna discuss anything, but hey, I mean, I want at least people around me to consider that, I don't agree with it because of all these reasons that I want to talk about. And so it's not because I'm a fucking pedophile or something like that. And, accuse someone all you want, but it doesn't make you any more right or wrong. It just makes you, appealing to anything that isn't logic, basically, appeal to authority, or appeal to, or, the person's traits or something like that. It's like, just talk about it logically and, pragmatically, I think, without, your preconceptions. That's just what I want to stress about. So, yeah, that'll be it for the video. I hope I have enough footage for this whole entire thing. Or I might throw in some other stuff, but yeah. Thanks for listening to this fucking whole thing, if you did. I hope you didn't. Or maybe rather than I hope you didn't, I hope you, were doing something productive or something else while you're doing it, because, I don't know, watching, an hour worth of, me brawler games is probably not good for you, unless you really wanted to see me, I don't know, fucking down throw up, be someone on the top platform, for 10 minutes, but, I mean, hey, what can I say? So, yeah, thanks for listening. I'm definitely gonna do more videos like this, just probably not even nearly as long. They're gonna be more targeted about one subject instead of about a bunch of things, so, yeah. So I'm gonna go. It's fucking hot right now. Is it 100 degrees? I don't fucking know. But anyway, yeah. If you want to comment anything or, talk about anything, I'm willing to talk about it. If you want me to talk about something else, or, if you think I actually, have an opinion that's, worth, something, then, you can ask me, what I think about something, and I might make a video on it. I don't know. Because it's definitely easier than, writing up or I think better, rather than easier, than writing up a big paragraph that nobody will write, or, essay that nobody will read. So, yeah. Thank you again. I'm gonna fucking go. It's been a while. And I'm just recording this last bit here at, 7 a.m. or something. I've been away for a while. You can hear my fucking air conditioner. And earlier in this section here, you probably could hear me scratching my arm. I'm sorry, but you'll have to forgive me for that one. I was in such a daze in my heat that, I wasn't thinking about it. But, no, put up with it, please. Because, yeah, I'm not gonna re-record all this bullshit that I was talking about. Because, well, frankly, if I was gonna do it again, I'd hope to do a better job. But, yeah, just to reiterate, thanks for listening. I'm gonna go now. Hopefully I can put it together enough Me Brawler clips. Maybe I'll have to go on quick play, we'll see. Anyway, thanks for listening again. I'll make another video. See you later.